And welcome back to HGC Korea. We just had an amazing game between these two teams. Oh man, my tongue is already
You were
busted
so
from that
excited.
game.
Yes.
Continue, Rally.
Probably one of the best games of the season, to be honest.
Yes, I do agree. And the final, not the final one, of course. I'm getting ahead of myself.
To be fair, Gluck seems to be the better team today, clearly. But still, FaZe might turn it around in Game 3. They have been looking much better in Game 2 compared to Game 1.
It is BOE, and
I think it's time for the Hanaton Zero Tool.
or Relic Genji.
Or the Relic Genji. I mean,
0% win rate, 0-5. I'm keeping that track in my brain.
look, one team's backs are against the wall.
Does that mean that FaZe will come back in the series?
I mean, combine the Hanaton Zero Tool with the Relic Genji, and maybe we could see a reverse sweep start to take motion. But the first bans are going to stay the same again. For the third time tonight, Medivh first ban coming out from FaZe. Gluck respond the same. Both sides place maximum confidence in their grasp, but FaZe finally start to mix things around.
They know. Relic Genji has 0% win rate, so they're giving that up. I think it's a smart choice.
They're baiting the Genji.
Yes.
Will Relic take the bait? No, they do not. He knows his own limits and goes for the Hanzos. FaZe is cracking up. They're disappointed that Relic didn't pick the Genji.
I thought it was going to be 100% locked in. You said so. Well,
Whoa.
they're playing with, I would say, a lot more desperation. Because this matters a lot for both teams.
Well, I believe FaZe will be much happier with how this draft is panning out. Not giving the Tyrael Malfurion combination to Gluck, that's a pretty good start for Game 3. Will they go for the Genji for the third time, though? They're debating it, certainly.
Certainly a different draft with Malfurion first pick. Tracer, of course, Franco.
Completely mixing things up this time around, taking away the Sonya from Zeron. I completely agree with that choice. Tracer, more of a neutral pick, but let's see how it meshes up with the rest of FaZe's draft.
Something Gluck can actually try to bring in Zeron's favorite, Blaze. And having a double support, which they tried before, but it wasn't on this map. And on this map, the objective is actually so strong that if you can poke out and sustain and win the Immortal, you don't really have to win the team fight too much, but Immortal will just push it for you. So as long as you have Hanzo, this one is actually that I agree with, is having solo Hanzo DPS. Not all the
shown
time.
a lot of times by Ballistics. They run the solo Hanzo a lot. Granted, it's SC on the Hanzo, which makes the conversation slightly more nuanced, but Gluck go for the Genji ban. I think something interesting to think about in terms of what Gluck will want to pick for Zeron is that Zeron's best heroes, if we think about it, are generally, I think it's Sonya, obviously, then it's Leoric and Dehaka. That's what I would think. Then comes the Blaze. And Leoric and Dehaka aren't very good picks on this map. Blaze is the logical pick, but now they took away the Blaze.
Double support!
Double support going in for a Gluck.
And I believe Kerosene got a buff
He got
in this patch?
tiny buff to Transcendence.
Okay,
I
that's not a
believe,
buff then.
which doesn't really...
His health got some buff. About 70. I'm not going to do math.
I mean,
it
it is
a
a
big math.
reasonable buff, but I don't think it really matters that much in the context of whether Karazim makes a good double support or not on this particular map. I think it's a very reasonable pick overall, and Gluck declining to pick the solo laner, even though Zanya has been revealed, so they clearly need more time to think about this. They haven't thought about this possibility, it seems, because they don't need to reveal the double support this early, right?
Yep, but FaZe, I think they are trapped now. They thought it was going to be fine with the Blaze and the Bunker Band, thinking that Franco can just snipe onto the target, but when there is double support with the maximum amount of sustain, having the Crystal Ages, maybe even the Palm. So they're coming up with the Varian once again, with some CCs, making sure the taunt, which did not work in game 1, but maybe they're thinking in a different terms. But this time, they don't have the silence, though. It's a different game.
To be fair, Malfurion Varian is also a very decent combination, and their draft is vastly different, so I'm not too offended by the Varian pick. Very happy about the Greymane pick because we were earlier talking about how great and how central Greymane is for Feliz, whereas Gluck decided to put Zeron on Arthas. Very good pick on this map, very solid pick into what Feliz has drafted as well. The problem is how fluent will Zeron be? How proficient will Zeron be on the Arthas? I think that is yet an unanswered question.
He only played 3 times, having 1 to 33% win rate. And I don't think it was on this map either. So I do worry about that a little bit more. Feliz, possibly the last game of HEC in Korea before the Crucible match for them. So this one matters a lot. I would say Feliz actually got a lot of their comfort picks. Franco being on Tracer, Malfurion, also Greymane. Varian is something else that we have to think about, but also the Sonya.
So as you said, a lot of comfort picks on the side of Feliz. Gluck, on the other hand, coming up fresh with something that we haven't seen that much from them. On paper, it looks to be a very logical, solid draft, though.
Oh, look at that, 33, 4 and 8.
Evenly matched. Just like the map, just like the 2 Immortals on this map.
That does no damage, attacking each other.
They're pacifists, okay? And they're also... Wait.
They're also immortals, so they can't die.
I didn't expect Gluck to just go for the 4v4 bottom. Usually the side with the double support Kharazim is often enticed into sending the Kharazim up early to give the solo laner a slight advantage.
Well, they have Sustain and Blue Beetle holding that battery. And Relic is actually a DPS. Against the Tracer, most likely.
I guess it is sort of interesting that Overlord is chosen as the sole DPS in this case. Relic on the Kharazim.
And Hanzo having 6.5 range, of course. And always poke with the Q and the auto attack. That's where they are able to force this one out so well. And Arthas can sustain himself pretty well, I think. He might have tapped on to the healing well already. Against that 2v1, it's going to be really tough.
Both teams going for somewhat standard rotations on this map. Gluck is slightly slower with the structural damage, but that will soon change. Obviously double support, so slightly less damage onto the turrets is to be expected at this point in the game.
It's been some time since we saw double support, which failed last weekend totally. I would say out of 4 games, all 4 games. Focusing on OJ, Franco was looking for a target, but not even throwing that pulse bomb as they were. He couldn't really find a target to kill.
Zeron will have to be careful about staying in that top lane. A little structural damage could go a long way, and if he fails to clear out this set of mercenaries this time around.
That's going to be a tough job, so Kharazim joins the fight on top lane, forcing out Tracer and Hanaton a little bit, making sure they don't take too much damage from this camp, as the bottom camp is already cleared by Feliz.
Relic finally answering the Tracer pressure up top. Pulse bombs don't deal as much damage in the early game anymore, so not too much of a chunk there. Overall, a slight lack of structural damage was to be expected with Glock's double support composition, so both teams will be okay with how things have been panning out.
So far. Of course, after 4, Overlord trying to chunk damage. There's a taunt and the pair of root onto Relic. Just dashes out. Frankel might not have had the pulse bomb at that moment. Just built 100% right now, from what I saw.
Very likely, and although the engage went in the way of Feliz, luck with their double support and also a lot of fountain chugs stay up healthy once again.
Focusing on to Frankel a little bit, as all they need to do is just make sure they stay in that AoE, cast that Tyrael shield, the Ariel healing, so that Overlord can just poke out and win the race, as they are winning in the race so far. And we're doing some pokes. Frankel also doing close to no damage, as they're healing so well with the double support, and Arthas soaking up so much shots from Tracer and everything else. Trying to isolate the target. There's the pulse bomb onto Milky Way. Parting Gift actually does not take him down. And it's Tracer that's going down. Milky Way playing with fire, shielding his allies right there. Relic does survive. More kills happening. OJ onto Chase, onto Seron. Can they? Really?
Both of them survive in an insane brawl, reminiscent of
Really?
the 1-minute brawl almost when we think about when that fight first started. So close. And all the difference was made by one parting gift, right? Because one parting gift didn't land on Milky Way, so he survived. And then he shielded the other teammates. So...
And Milky Way was moving in and out, just thinking that he was going to survive. I don't think I can ever do that. What a Tyrael player here.
That was really impressive by both teams, though. Overall, I don't think any one of the 10 players really put a step in the wrong direction there. By the slimmest of margins, that team fight was decided, and Gluck emerges with the team fight victory and the Immortal, but due to there being a double support composition, not too much damage suffered on the side of Feliz.
Oh man, Rally, are we going back to the double support compositions? I'm not the biggest fan.
I was actually a huge fan of the double support meta back when it was a thing, so I'm pretty excited about seeing it back in action. Because generally I think my philosophy on the matter is that double support metas reduce the possibility of one person placing a step in the wrong direction, then getting blown up, and the team fight just ending like that with one tiny little mistake. And of course that's fair, that's cool, and people blowing up is always fun to watch, but I generally want to see the better team win in the end. And I think double support really leads to those kinds of victories more because it eliminates such freak accidents.
Oh, that was close.
Well, that was close indeed, but had he gone down, I don't think it would have mattered all that much. Zeron will be able to survive this one, no doubt.
Well, Arthur so far, I would say at least an A onto Seron, the surviving soaking solo lane.
Zeron has been doing a great job on the Arthas so far, even though we didn't really recognize him being able to play that hero with a lot of proficiency. And I have to say that it's pretty refreshing to see Karazim and Ariel being used again. Probably the best thing about the double support meta was how viable it made almost all supports, except for perhaps
close
Lili.
to 10 and they are locking those in. There's the arrow, insta-cleanse by Liu there, but will get blown away regardless.
Completely blown up. Malfurion will go down as well. This was very, very naive on the side of Feliz to stay there in full knowledge of the experience gap between the two teams. So not exactly sure what was going on inside Feliz's combined minds there, but this is now a meaningful snowball. The first Immortal may not have achieved all that much. This one probably will.
Please. They're 10 now. Way too late.
Twilight Dream, Silver Bullet.
Maybe a leap? We're having that question mark from Sonya.
I would love to see a leap come out.
With the Twilight Dream, with the Curse Bullet? Maybe.
Varian, Sonya, Greymane, Tracer.
That's way too much to commit, I would say. Because there are lots of... yes, it is not leap. It's 7-sided, but Crystal Aegis will just save the locked-in target easily with that R button.
It's Relic, so we probably expected the 7-sided, to be honest. Once a damage dealer, always a damage dealer.
You're right. See, over time, what Overlord is doing here, as Tracer is trying to do the same, but it's never the same. Hanaton flanks in. Great arrow as a defensive tool. Their sanctification, but they're not really trying to get the kill. They're trying to escape from this zone right here. Aegis blocking that pulse bomb. Greatly done. Silence really not connecting, but Ariel in trouble. Has no escape. Actually gets Varian. A good trade-off for Gluck there. Now onto a chase. They still have a support, but very low on mana.
Somewhat classic double support fight in which the first step is really prolonged, but after that clears up pretty quickly. And I thought it would go poorly for the side of Feliz simply because Aimer wasn't doing damage for such a long time on the Greymane. He was zoned out, then was forced to take the upper route out of the fight. So it could have been disastrous for Feliz, but unfortunately for Gluck, there wasn't enough damage to take advantage of that dip in DPS, and Feliz, well,
that's the second Immortal now for Gluck. Hanaton, that initiating the team with the flank from the side was really great. There's the arrow onto OJ, not onto Leo, so can't really focus too much. Hanaton already onto the back line.
That was a great flank. Tracer is a bit late to the fight, though. Not a lot of damage.
Let's see if the party's already over. Seems like it's over with Sonya dead. And Immortal doing tons of damage to the fort. Continuing with the entangle onto OJ. He may not escape as well as after that double support. Talk about sustain their HP bar. 100%. Tracer trying to do what she can. Not even close to getting a kill.
Alright, so I think we are witnessing some problems with Feliz's internal communication here, because one mistake made at the end of a 31-minute match, that can be chalked up as a mistake. But this engage, when Tracer is so far away, it reminds me of the ending of the last game, right? When, again, Feliz committed to a 4v5 team fight. Admittedly, the engage was perfectly fine, but a 4v5 is not simply winnable.
Trying to chase. There's a taunt onto Ario, I think. The Twilight Dream is so big onto the silence, though. Crystal Aegis was available, but great timing on that silence.
That was amazingly well played by the Malfurion. Again, the Varian getting a lot of value out, so Feliz will be somewhat happier after losing the keep, but the problem is that they didn't really need to lose that keep. So overall, the specter of Feliz's rates this decision.
Destroying the wall. Always not the worst one, but not when the arrow connects onto your teammates, and Greymane was just looking for luck, maybe possibly to an engage, but Hanaton will be the second one with the 7-sided strike from Kharazim.
Overlord answers Frankel's arrows from last game with an amazing shot of his own, catching 3 in an inopportune.
Feliz was right there, right next to the fort, just thinking, guys, what do we do? Oh, there's a wall. We should just destroy these walls. It gives us no experience points, so we should just destroy it.
They certainly seem to be a bit mentally lost after losing a keep with so little to gain. Now Gluck, level and a half ahead, a keep ahead, 3 camps ahead as well. They will go into the next Immortal phase with being very close to level 16, and what can Feliz do now? All they can do is hope for another miraculous engage with Barian and Malfurion. And
Hanzo actually losing to the camp.
Nope. The nerf seems to have worked.
There's a taunt onto Arthas. First bullet lands, but Arthas has a helmet, so it's okay.
A level 3 helmet, as it were.
And Overlord poking in some damage with the scatter. Of course, that's the main source that they want to poke some. And Auriel does not, you don't want to overstep, as you are the main target that was getting caught most of the time.
It's normal for Auriel to feel like a warrior, to go forefront in the...
Lubito holding that gauge. He's not even scared, and focus down onto Hanaton, gone already.
That
That's
was a
gonna be
huge
the second
misstep.
arrow. Let's miss, but already 2 kills landed. I think they can go straight. No, they will take the long way, actually. I thought they were actually going to push with the giant wave on the top. I think they could have been also an okay too. They had the sanctification. Maybe I was just going ahead of everyone else.
Their sanctification was on cooldown because they used it to chase. So I think overall Gluck made the correct decision not to go for the core.
Okay.
Like, technically they could have, I guess, but at 14 minutes, death timers are not long enough. And also, it's so easy to choke out an opponent on this map if you're up 2 keeps against 2, like, once this Immortal has finished pushing, Gluck are going to be up 2 forts and 2 keeps on Feliz. And that's not a deficit that a lot of teams can come back from.
Those Tracers still clearing the wave from top lane, as this could be the final moment for Feliz. Adrian looking for that timing on the Tyrael to spurn the timeout, as this is fully shielded Immortal. Straight walking into the keep will be the core right after.
That was a really good Howling Blast.
Landing up on the great silence connecting. And Sonya dies once again, and many more targets getting caught. Ice Block will not keep him safe. Aimers, the Tracer survives, but all these teammates are down. Immortal, that takes the keep down, and straight will be the core right after.
Gluck bringing back the double support meta in very convincing fashion.
Well, is it going to be in work later on? May have to ask that question again. But work certainly worked against the Tracer today with Feliz. It is going to be the finish with a 3-0 in the series. And Feliz will be dropping down to that Crucible. Gluck securing their spot to play in that playoff next weekend.
Very impressive performance by Gluck overall, considering how well Feliz pulled themselves together in the middle of some games, and I don't think 3-0 was the result we expected when we saw this matchup on paper. But thanks to a lot of solid play, some overconfidence, I would say, from Feliz, and an ingenious draft in Game 3, Gluck emerges with a very convincing victory.
Well, with a Hanzo on Battlefield, I think this actually works.
True ballistic faction.
It's certainly correct. 2 kills, 15 damage from Hanzo.
Look at those heals, look at those shields. So much sustain on the side of Gluck.
And that was all coming out from multiple members, which means when they need that shield, when they need that amount of heal for your teammate to survive, comparing to the overtime healing from Malfurion, it was not enough to sustain against a Kerasim. I think Kerasim was the MVP here with the 7-sided, picking up the kill onto Hanaton twice, and also providing some heal, also dashing in and attacking onto Greymane and Tracer most of the time.
Probably a toss-up between him and an Arthas. I think Zeron did remarkably well on a hero that he wasn't really very well known for, but he stuck out the laning phase without placing a step wrong, landed a lot of really good Howling Blasts in team fights, and overall, we have to remember that he had been targeted heavily in the draft phase and still emerged with a very respectable performance.
I think that was the best pick, and Oftentimes his mistake came from his rotational work when he doesn't have to rotate down and up anywhere. He can just stay in that solo lane sustain. Well, there's no chance of you making that mistake.
And not being all that confident in your your proficiency on the hero sort of prevents you from making too aggressive moves. So
That too.
right, Zeron never overextended this game, and I think him being on Arthas had something to do with that. So fortuitous, I guess.
Yeah, double support, pretty nice. It worked great against Good Luck. Well, Auriel, most of the further AoE healing and against a it was a good counter against the Pulse Bomb Tracer. Never really got that kill, and it was somewhat of a mismatch on the timing when they were almost having enough damage. Pulse Bomb was not available. When the Pulse Bomb was there, they didn't have enough damage, so it could have continued, but Feliz really having some trouble against that sustained double support. But that's going to be another 3-0 with a follow-up from the first series. Didn't really expect a 3-0 happening for the second series at all.
But that's what happened. One can't help but imagine, what if they hadn't brought out the Varian in 2 games? Because in both games where they brought out the Varian, there seemed to be a lack of, I don't know, organization, do you want to call it? Or coordination, I think, was like iffy in all 3 games. But when they picked Johanna as their main tank, they looked so much more stable, and their formations weren't as disjointed, whereas the games in which they picked Varian, it was either hit or miss with every single engage. They would either get the combo off with the support CC and blow something up and chase, or they would just completely whiff the entire team fight and lose in the objective.
Yeah, Varian right now in a weird place, has been popping up a few times, and of course the taunts, but in the later phase of the game, I think his strength really weakens because he has, compared to the other tanks, I would say he has lower HP compared to the others. And he can't really, once he charges in, unless there's like a Medivh or something like the Diablo pair, he can't really go back. He has to taunt and survive by himself. He's not, you can't do the double protection anymore with the rework. So I think there's a lot to take with the Varian. I think we saw lots of weakness why Varian is very weak in the Korean meta, especially right now. And got the grab onto Auriel a few times, but that was it. Nothing else.
I'm also disappointed that we didn't get to see the Hanaton Zero tool.
Oh, also Relics Genji.
Also Relics Genji,
I am
but
very disappointed.
That side is probably saved.
But see, when they didn't pick Genji, they banned Genji themselves, and they win. Surprise, surprise!
They know their strengths and weaknesses very well, I guess.
Well, here comes the highlight for the series number 2 tonight. This was a very good game. And look at that last right, not really connecting with anything. He's the one to blow up in game 2. The same draft except for the Varian with the Johanna now.
Looking back at these team fights, I'm always somewhat impressed by how well Aimer manages to position and dish out the damage. One has to wonder what if he were playing in a better team, for instance. He seems to be very flexible with his hero picks most of the time.
Maybe they will have a different roster after mid-season brawl.
That is very possible. Korean teams are very shuffle happy when it comes to the bottom side of the standings.
Lots of, from what I know, lots of the old pros. This was an amazing moment where Milky Way survived, and also Relic survives at the end. The Seron taking so much damage also managed to walk out.
That was so close.
The arrow moment, and Greymane actually goes in.
I guess this,
just doing some damage to
this team fight was when the game ended, but I guess the last team fight in which Milky Way escaped with a sliver of health is when the game was decided.